Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Decolonizing the Narrative. Today, as you can see behind us, we're going to be discussing the subcontinent, and I'm joined by my very dear brother, my brother in Islam, and my brother in the subcontinent, Husnain. Husnain is Vice President of Indo-Pak Development Forum here at KCL, and he's also incoming President of TED Talks, or TEDx? TEDx, my bad, that's a bit silly from me. TEDx here at KCL. And he's a youth presenter, originally from Brum. There's a lot of good things about him. So do you think I did a good intro?
That was alright. You missed out like 20 things but mine.
Cool. Tell them a bit about yourself, where you're from originally.
So my family all originate from Pakistan. Obviously before the partition we were in India, but all originally from Punjab. We have, I guess you can call it stems or roots in Jalandhar, Hoshiarpur, Jodhpur, and then obviously after the partition, my great granddad was an allotment officer, so a lot of our family migrated quite swiftly actually to Gujranwala, which is where most of the present day family live. We have families scattered all around, not just there but around the world as well. But alhamdulillah, good stuff, man.
Good stuff. Fair enough. The purpose of today's kind of, decolonizing of the narrative to a certain extent, and to be honest, I think this episode and this topic is something I'm going to highlight a lot in the whole podcast, not just in this episode but a lot. It's about the subcontinent. I think we should start with the Indo-Pak Development Forum that you said that, you kind of are vice president of.
You've got some news to share with our viewers about that.
Yeah, so guys, I'm going to be in committee of Indo-Pak Development Forum for next year, even though I'm Bengali. It's an honor. But do you want to kind of share what kind of led you to, want to be part of that society?
Yeah, of course.
And then we can kind of talk about, the history of it, of India, the subcontinent, the partition, and all those things.
Good stuff. No, so, I joined it literally for my first year. It was because of one very special sister.
Also, we didn't say what year you're in now.
I'm heading into my third year.
Going into third year, studying global health and public science?
Social medicine.
Social medicine.
With neuroscience. I have to add that bit because
he has to add that.
It's too much.
He's going into third year. So tell us a bit about Indo-Pak. What is Indo-Pak Development Forum?
So I'll start off with summing up what the society is. Society was initially designed to be a discussion forum and panel to address most of the common stigmas, most of the common debates, most of the common key, I guess, what would you call them? Common ideas stemming from the subcontinent and issues prevailing in the area of the world. Now, fast forward a good 8 years now. We're I think heading into our 8th or 9th year even.
Crazy.
And alhamdulillah, there's been a huge amount of progress. We've gone from being a solely academic society to now incorporating social elements, charity elements, and political elements alongside, which obviously comes as a natural part of the whole nature of the society. The Indo-Pak Development Forum is supposed to be a place and a safe zone for everyone to come and discuss ideas, share ideas, and learn. The whole point was to inspire, I guess, an appreciation for our culture, for our background, for our ethnicity, for our roots, and most importantly, I guess, for the knowledge that can actually come from the subcontinent, which is one of the key takeaways from the society that a lot of people report. Now, like I said, I joined in my first year, again, thanks to a very special sister, and she really encouraged me to join. Joined in as Associate Sponsorships Officer. Last year served as Treasurer. This year moved up a little bit more and became VP. The President for this year is also an incredible person. He's not the President.
Is he not the President?
No.
Who's the President?
Sharmeen.
Big up Sharmeen.
The fact that you don't know your own president is crazy.
Listen, I was only informed recently about the committee,
But yeah, so Mahdi inshallah is obviously going to be part of the team. He's going to be a very good addition. But you mentioned that you're part of the Indo-Pak Forum, even though you're Bengali. Now, the vision that we've had since last year, because of the and I guess this was the president's mission from last year. We had a co-presidency, but one president in particular had this very strong vision of pushing the society in the direction that it is heading in today, which is not only to focus on India and Pakistan, but the subcontinent as a whole. Thank you. Yes, the entire subcontinent, which obviously includes Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Mauritius to an extent,
No, Mauritius.
But surrounding areas, is it the Maldives or Mauritius?
Maldives. I always get them.
It's actually one of the, I don't even know myself. Is what it is.
Maldives. Mauritius in Africa. What the hell are we talking about? Mauritius in Africa. Maldives.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Nepal. Correct. I mentioned a couple of things earlier. But most importantly, topics like Kashmir. And then even, I mean, obviously from that becomes the basis, right? And then from that you stem into all sorts of different areas, you know, such as Palestine, and literally everywhere in this day and age. But like I said, going back into the Indo-Pak, so literally the whole ethos behind the society is to make it a society where not only is it a holistic, I guess, discussion forum, but also a place and, like I said, a safe zone where people can come, learn, share, enjoy themselves, but also build that appreciation and I guess that, how would I call it, that belonging to our own culture and tradition.
And interesting you say that. I said this before on I think the first or second podcast episode, is the reason that I started this podcast is I was sitting literally in Bangladesh when I was in Bangladesh during the revolution, and I was sitting with my cousin, and we were just talking about the culture and the history of the subcontinent and of Bangladesh, and I was thinking, why does no one else know this? If you look at the way in which history is taught from a very, very Eurocentric perspective.
I agree.
History is taught after 1492, after the discovery of the Americas. And even if you look at the reason where of the conquest of the colonization of the Americas and why they called the Native American Red Indians, it's because they knew India to be a place of wealth. I'm going to say India, I'm going to refer to India, but India, what I'm referring to is of course India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. That's that whole area. India back then was known as such a place of wealth that the purpose of Christopher Columbus and the Spanish and Portuguese sailing out to discover a new land wasn't to discover a new land, it was actually just to find India, to get the...
You know what they were labelled as from the royalty of their countries? These so-called explorers, their own titles were privateers.
Yeah. And
if you look into what that means, you'll realise that it's nothing short for pirates.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Pirates. And it's a shame that a country that we call Great Britain literally is built and the foundation is based upon something so, how would I say, not even frugal, it's just like, I'm trying to explain it in the sense that it's just so, it seems vast, but really it's shallow.
So shallow, yeah.
It's such a shallow foundation where, you know, I mean, if like I said, obviously we're talking about India, I've put the Taj Mahal in the background, but this is just one of the key examples, right, of what can come out of such a beautiful country. The whole idea behind, like you said, India, was that we were going to have this, I guess, this advanced civilization. If we look now back to like the Middle Ages, for example, India didn't have a Middle Ages. India had wealth from pretty much the get-go, to be honest. They had the Mughal Empire, and before that, many empires preceded them.
Thei Sultanate.
Literally. And there was always battles. I mean, if you watch some of the historical films, a lot of them from like
Sanjay
Leela Bhansali. He's a Bollywood producer. My English is crazy today. Producer, but his films, a lot of his films, are actually based on historical true events. One of the most recent films that he released, which is Padmavat, talks about the Khilji Sultanate. It stemmed from Persia, entered India, and essentially they showed how the rule changed, and you know, Islam came into India, going against the Rajputs.
Yeah, and interesting what you're saying about that is, today a lot of people in the subcontinent, even myself, we have Persian blood.
Yes.
And the reason we have Persian blood is because it was actually through Iran that. From Iran, there was ships that sailed out into places like Chittagong, which is where I'm from, obviously.
Okay.
And from land, they went into places like Afghanistan, and after because they were called the Ghazni. Ghazni, Afghanistan was known as Ghazni. From there, they went into Pakistan, then into India, and they kept going and going and going. And because it was ruled by, that's why they referred to Timur. You know Timur?
Of course.
We call Timur the Lame because he sacked Delhi and he was a bit of a waste man. But Timur. He was literally known as a Persianized Turk, and he went and took over the whole of India. The Mughal emperor, the founder Babur, was a descendant of Timur, and he was Persian himself.
Correct.
So that shows the fact that as much as we are our own, you know, from the subcontinent, in ourselves, we still
Our roots 100%
are all connected
100%.
with the.
And this is the thing, you know, it's funny you mentioned that, and you talked about Timur and, you know, the links between Persia and India. Don't forget, even before this, or I think it was up during the time, maybe even after, the Silk Road was such a
100%.
vast network that literally spanned from, or I guess started from China, went all the way out into Persia. Yeah, and along the way you had India, you had Pakistan. Obviously back then, the whole region, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh were one country labelled India. And obviously after partition, things became a bit controversial. We had Pakistan, then we had East Pakistan, which is obviously now modern day Bangladesh. But there was this constant war, this civil, I guess, not even enmity, because, and this is a personal view, but I think it's important to share it with the viewers, where if we look back into how this entire debacle of the partition actually started, it is an imported idea. It isn't something that stemmed from civil unrest. Civil unrest was caused as a result of basically external influence.
Literally jumping on that point is that, okay, we talk about the wealth of India. We're going to talk more about, you know, the beautiful history and the, to some extent, forgotten history.
Of course.
Big up Forgotten History A on TikTok, follow me. The forgotten history of the subcontinent. But before we touch on that, we should touch on why is it that subcontinent isn't taught? And that's because what is taught? What is taught is that Indian history began after 1948, Pakistani history began after 1947. The Indian and Pakistani history began.
But even 1948, I mean, the year, obviously 1947 is I guess the marked year, right? But 1948 is when the majority of the Eurocentric history that is taught about India, Pakistan, and the subcontinent as a whole, where it all starts from, 1948, because that's when the partition has happened, right? It's happened in 1947. After that, what comes is when
unrest,
constant. And you know, it's a shame because it wasn't a one-off. To this day, look at what happened in Bangladesh, To this day,
how was that?
Literally everything that has gone on, everything that has happened, hasn't stemmed from, to an extent, what I would like to say, unrest from the home. A lot of it has come from pressure from an external influence, and you probably know this more than I do, especially the Bangladesh situation.
I would say, if you look at the ways in which the British, there's a brilliant book, I forgot what it is, but it's called Inglorious Empire, and it was written about the British colonization of India to some extent.
Okay.
To a large extent, it was mainly about that. It was focusing on that, and it was talking about the way in which the British colonized India, and the way in which the British actually colonized 25% of the world. Majority of it wasn't through a major battle, because you know when you think about the Ottoman or early Islamic conquest, you think about a huge battle. You know, you have the battle of the Conquest of Constantinople.
Correct.
Fehteh. It was the biggest battle of 1453. You had the battle in which the Seljuks broke into Anatolia, Battle of Manzikert. You think about the battle of Khaybar and all these different battles of early Islam. You think, okay, these are pinpoint moments in which you can pinpoint this moment is when there was the rise of this entity in that region. The British never had that. The British, the way in which they slithered in, I would like to use the word.
No, it's true. That's
slithered into India is through pitting people against each other. They pitted the Hindus and the Muslims against each other. Hindus and Muslims lived in peace. The Mughal Empire was majority Hindu, was ruled by the Muslims. You know, and it's very interesting that a small little island. I think there was a person from Cambridge University who was reading one of the passages that was the first exchange between the Indian king, which was I think at the time Akbar, and the British. And they were the Mughals were saying, why would we begin trade with a small unknown nation in the West, a small island that doesn't have any natural resources? They didn't have any wealth really.
Literally.
What did they do? They went in, just like the Portuguese, they started sailing around Africa. They didn't need to sail through the Ottoman lands anymore. They sailed around Africa, they got in, and they start slowly implementing unrest.
You know, there's another show, again directed by Sanjay Leela Bhansali. I am a huge Sanjay Leela Bhansali fan, but this is by no means a sponsorship or a plug for him. But the content that he produces is so accurate, and it's such a great depiction of the real story. It's definitely worth watching for any of you who are interested in subcontinent history, the Asian subcontinent history. But there's a show that's on Netflix right now. It's called Hira Mandi. If you watch that, it talks about, and it literally shows how the British came in and how they used the courtesans or tried to persuade the courtesans to get in with the British, and then essentially influence the what do you call them? They were essentially like the barons and the lords of the time over there, the mayors and whatnot. I forgot what the name for them is.
But interesting is that the ways in which the British colonized it can't just be seen just through India. So, for example, say, people would say this was a one-off. They use this tactic.
They've done it everywhere.
Well, look at Lawrence of Arabia.
Literally.
In the entire Saudi Arabia, why is the entire Arab world divided? Look at the borders of the Arab world: Iraq, Iran, Syria. Why is the borders like that, cutting through all these different ethnicities, different sects of Islam, different languages? Why is it? It's because the British and the French wanted to keep people who hated each other in the same borders. Why? So they can't rise up and defeat their colonizers. That's the real reason.
No, it's true.
Look how weird the borders are in Africa. Do you see? I think it's what's it called? Angola has just like a straight line there, and it was because it was literally drawn by a British white man who's never been to the entire African continent, and he just drew a line. Look at India. The guy who made it had 10 weeks to do it and never been to India. He didn't understand the different nuances.
It's funny you say that. This is slightly off topic. This is more so focusing on Africa, Northern Africa in particular, but obviously we knew and we know of the history where Islam obviously went into Anatolia and went into Spain. Now Al-Andalus, obviously, as it was called in the past. Now me and my uncle went recently, right, to Morocco, but then we also went into Spain and ventured in. I went to southern Spain, where Granada, Cordoba or Cordoba, and all of these areas around there. And then when we went in there, we saw that there are still reminiscences, reminiscences of, or traces, you could even say, of Islamic history. 100%. If you go to Cordoba, they have what they call the Mezquita. It's one of the, I guess, the oldest Islamic buildings in Spain of this day, and how it's designed is, you've probably seen it, the double arches, the red and white arches, right? But how they've designed it is they've basically literally slapped an entire cathedral right into the middle of it. And I've got pictures. I wish I could show you guys, but maybe that's a story for another day, right? But this is just another example of where now, if we look at modern day politics, why is it that Morocco, although very close to Spain, has such a, controlled relationship with Europe? Why is it that Morocco seems to be, from what I can see, an ally of the West? Where we already know that the rest of the Muslim countries, especially the ones surrounding Morocco, are in jeopardy. Why? And this was something that we were trying to look into and discuss. But again, that can be another topic that we can potentially come back.
That's true, and it's like,
I need a reappearance on this podcast.
He'll come back.
I'm coming back.
But yeah. Going back to the subcontinent is that the reason, if you look at the way India was created and Pakistan was created, it was created on the basis of colonialism, and it was created on the basis of trying to put people against each other.
Yes.
Because, let's be honest, in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all of them were one. Yes, there might be issues. There's always going to be issues. Even in this country, there's issues between Bengalis and Pakistanis and Sylhetis and people from Dhaka and Chittagong. Even now. But if they were one, they would be hugely more powerful than how they are.
I agree.
1,000,000%. If they weren't colonized by the West, or even if the West had colonized them and had just left, this nation is now known as whatever. They don't have a name.
No, it's true. It's true.
What would happen? This nation now would be more powerful. Why do you think they divide them? Why do you think they divide us? Why do you think that they try to cause divisions between Pakistanis and Bengalis? Why did they try to cause divisions between Indians and Pakistanis? Even recently, I think a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, there was unrest in Leicester between the Hindus and the Muslims. You think these issues randomly came out of thin air?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And it was caused by the fact that, because let's be honest, Hindus and Muslims lived peacefully for centuries.
Correct.
Centuries and centuries and centuries. The Hindus lived under the Muslims gave them free right to live and everything like that. And they lived peacefully. There was no issues between the two of them. Yes, there might have been some unrest here and there in different villages. Fine.
Look at Palestine and look at Turkey as well.
Exactly.
During Muslim rule.
Exactly.
There were vast amounts of Jewish population.
The Jewish population was brought in.
Literally.
When the Jews were expelled in 1492 from Spain, the Jews and the Muslims.
Yes.
Who brought them in? It was the Ottoman Empire.
The Ottoman Empire.
It was Haydn and Barbarossa who took them on ships and brought them in Selim II.
There's a place, again, slightly unrelated to the subcontinent, but it's important to know. There's a place in Belek, which is, I think, one of the surrounding areas of Antalya. Again, my uncle and I, we went to this place. It's called the Garden of Peace. It's one of the only areas of the world where there's a synagogue, a church, and a mosque in the exact same vicinity. Obviously, the other area being Jerusalem, where literally in the old city they have all three of them, right? But the point to note is that is supposed to be a site of memorial for when there was literally peace. The entire Ottoman Empire stemmed on the basis of peace, which obviously derives from Islamic principles, right? But the point I'm trying to get across here is that whole ideology behind living in harmony and living in peace is actionable, is doable, and I still believe in that happening today if we didn't have the political structures and I guess the geopolitical hindrances that we see on every map of the world, in every country, in every government, and most importantly, in everyone's hearts.
And to highlight some of the, because now you've opened the books, so now we have to highlight some of them as well.
100%.
The political unrest, for example, Imran Khan.
Yeah.
And for example,
I can talk about that all day.
I can talk about it all day as well. Obviously, we don't need to.
Yeah.
But
that has to be another topic.
That of course will be a topic.
100%.
And Sheikh Hasina.
Yeah, of course.
Modi. All these leaders, right? And the ways in which, because to be honest, of course, it's very easy to criticize a person and an individual. But to be honest, you also have to look at a system in which they were able to gain that power.
Yeah,
you have to look at a system in which they were able to, or when they weren't able to gain power and they had to be, deposed. And the fact that I do think that Sheikh Hasina was bad, and I was there in Bangladesh, and I hated every moment of it because it was disgusting.
I couldn't speak to you for a whole week.
I remember it was a whole week. I had no.
I messaged him on Insta and I was like, I hope he's alive.
And
I had no idea.
It was one of the worst conditions.
No idea.
By the way, I'm censoring myself on what I would actually say about Hasina in this video because of respect for my own podcast. But her and Modi, and then obviously what happened to Imran Khan. All of these things, it stems from corruption. Why does corruption exist? Now we need to tackle the root.
But before we get into corruption, there's another thing that we need to know, and it's I think probably the elephant in the room, as they like to call it. You can have corruption, you can have deceitful people in power, but what really comes down and what it all boils down to is what the rest of the world thinks. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we are constantly living in a cycle of not even worrying, but contemplating what does everyone else think. And unfortunately, when you're a society, and I'm talking about the Asian subcontinent in particular, when you're a society that has literally been forced to believe that you're not as superior as the rest, cough the West.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
We'll get onto that, but this is the elephant that I'm trying to address. When you're forced to believe that you are not just subservient, but you have to follow the rule of a particular region of the world, anything that you try to do to oppose that becomes the very basis of persecution, of corruption, and of civil unrest. Now you'll see that literally relates and sums up everything that happened in Bangladesh, everything that happened in Pakistan, everything that's happening in India right now, and everything that's happening in Kashmir, and in every other region of the world, where unfortunately there is this hegemony being placed by, I guess, the US. I can't really think of any other country that is doing this at the minute, where the influence that comes from these people is essentially targeting societies that they believe should be subservient. Now, God hasn't given them the right to choose that. And that's why we see all of this evil in the world, why we see corruption, why we see deceitful people. If we talk about Pakistan's current political situation, and you've got Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif, people who know me know my true opinions about them and how much I detest them, yeah? But again, out of pure respect for your podcast, we will save that for after.
Yeah.
But, going back to as I was saying, Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif, Nawaz Sharif's daughter, Maryam Nawaz, all of these key political figures, I say key, really and truly, all of them have given in to that Western, I guess, influence. And not just influence, they are part of it.
But also, to go back on what you were saying, is that I feel as though there's two points.
Right.
Number one, when looking at the situation in our nations, the subcontinent as general, we have to firstly look at colonialism and the effects of it.
100%.
That's the first step. there of course was a power vacuum. And power vacuums happen, and when there's a population as big as the subcontinent, was it like 1.9 or 2 billion people in just the subcontinent alone,
literally,
which is more than the entire, it's like triple the entire population of Europe. When there's that many people,
2 billion people right now is like a quarter of the world's
population in that area.
Now you can fact check us if we're wrong. Just put it in the comments, okay? Yeah.
That entire population.
From what I remember,
I'm pretty sure it's 2 million. 170 million in Bangladesh, 300 million in Pakistan, and it's 1.4 billion in India, and then obviously Sri Lanka and all the other countries.
Yeah, do the math.
Right. Anyways. And this we have to look at, to be honest, the West. Why is it that these nations have that power vacuum? It's because when the colonizers left, it's not like, say for example, I fire you from a job, and I give you what's it called, the pay you have to give after you fire someone. You have to pay them a certain.
There is a word for it. You're right.
You have to pay them a certain amount of money. Right?
Anyways, yes.
So imagine I paid you a certain amount of money after I fire you. It means that you can kind of survive for maybe a year, 2 years without having a job, and then you can get a job. And now imagine I fire you, I don't give you anything,
that's
and you can't find a job. That's exactly what happened in the subcontinent.
Literally.
So we have to look at the West. Why is it they left and didn't give anything? It's because they didn't care about their subjects. They did it out of a way of showing, oh look, we're so much greater. Look how good we are. We are freeing.
And you know how great these colonizers were? They were so great that instead of actually trying to fix anything, they built buildings in London and they labelled one building India House. One building, whatever else, Australia House. Yeah.
And not only that.
Why? But why?
What did they do? They took all the jewels. They took all the jewels and everything, all the beauty of riches and all of this, and they used it to decorate the Buckingham Palace.
Literally used and abused. Literally
used and abused. So we have to look and we have to point out the fact that colonialism had a huge negative effect on the small continent. But I would say I think the biggest effect. But I would say it is very easy now. Us to say, oh, colonialism did this. Let's rest for 500 years. Let's rest for 500 years.
I was going to get onto this,
because I've been to Bangladesh for over a month in the last literally just a few weeks ago I came back. Corruption exists on every level, unfortunately. From the top government position to even maybe a beggar on the street who gets money and then gives it to another person who's above him, and then there's this, that, whatever. Corruption exists on every single level in Bangladesh, even to the point where you go out to a restaurant, there's certain people that they'll look and say, okay, you can go over. Corruption exists at every level. So it's very easy to criticize the West. I'm a big believer in criticize the colonizers as much as possible. That's the whole podcast name is Decolonizing the Narrative. But now we have to look inwards. The Prophet ﷺ always said, look into yourself.
Correct.
Look at how you can improve yourself. Where is the gaps in yourself? And the gaps in ourselves is the fact that we haven't recovered from colonialism because we haven't tried. We kind of accepted the situation we're in.
No, I hear you.
We're like, okay, fine, let this person have power, let that person have power. Occasionally we'll do a revolution. And I'm very grateful that in Bangladesh there was a revolution to topple a despotic regime, a tyrannical regime, to topple it and instate something new, inshallah. And now I'm looking very much forward to the future of Bangladesh and seeing what can happen.
I think the new I guess leadership of the country is someone that I look up to a lot.
100%. Nobel Peace Prize winner
Muhammad Yunus.
Yes.
An absolute legend, genuinely.
100%.
And the work that he's done, okay, I'm sure there are many controversies about him as well, as there are with every person, right? But if we look at him as a person and the work that he started off with no help, with nothing whatsoever, they give him as an example in design technology textbooks for sustainable development.
Insane.
I studied him in GCSE DT, bro. So my point is, people like that who have literally revolutionized a country from the get-go, for them to now have the chance to actually make proper change is something to be very aspirational about and very hopeful for.
Sure.
Because I can see that people who have that gift of knowing how to use leadership in the correct way will do it no matter what. Imran Khan, for example, that guy is an absolute godsend. Yeah, he knows how to not only play the political game in the correct way, but he also knows that first and foremost his life and everything that he does is questionable by him and him alone. And he uses that as his basic guideline for everything that he does. The fact that he's sitting in prison quiet right now should speak volume to the vast amount of people that criticize him. Because if he wanted to, he could, the same way that the Bangladeshi people revolted, the same way that in the past so many other civilizations have revolted against, look at the French and their revolution, yeah? If Imran Khan said today to get out and go on the streets, I guarantee you right now, minimum 80% of the Pakistani population would get out on the streets and completely overtopple these guys. Completely. The reason they don't do it is because he understands that if we do that, not only is the country going to go into even more decay, but there isn't going to be a lot to hope that comes out of it. There's not going to be a lot of hope that comes out of that.
As well is that he knows this country is not about himself.
Correct.
He's putting the country in
yeah, exactly.
In front.
Very good point.
Of its importance, and I think that's a very respectable thing that he's done.
100%.
Imran Khan. And going into even like, you know, the relations between my country, Bangladesh, and India, and Pakistan, and India, and all these different relations. It's all something which I think is you have to take a very nuanced perspective.
I agree.
It's not something that is so black and white. It's not that this person's bad and that person's good. It's not black and white at all.
And you know what? I think that's the beauty of discussion in like what we're having here right now, is that you understand these nuances. It's true, nothing in this world is black and white. As simple as we might be able to paint something, and might be able to paint a picture, even painting a proper picture takes ages. So obviously we've got 30 minutes, 40 minutes of a podcast here that we have to deliver, or that that you're assembling. By the way, hats off, because it's really good work, genuinely. Yeah? But my point is, we sacrifice this time and stuff, and over time, of course, is going to build up something absolutely beautiful.
Inshallah.
Right? Where you're going to have a range of ideas that you can discuss and share with everyone. Inshallah. But this type of knowledge and this type of, accessibility to knowledge is something that wasn't prevalent, let's say 10 years ago, or maybe even before, right? The revolution that's come with podcasting, that's come with videoing, conferencing,
the internet, even
literally the internet, everything, yeah? If we think about all of this and how this stems in with the issues that we see today in the subcontinent and in the wider world, you realize that development comes with a sacrifice, and that sacrifice can take any shape. Unfortunately, in this situation, the sacrifice that has been taken is identity.
And I want to ask you this question. Do you feel as though the culture and religion should be separate? Because this question is very prevalent.
Yeah.
In terms of because the main criticism, the subcontinent, I would say community,
100%,
is that
the intertwining. Yeah, literally the intertwining
weddings, right?
of culture and religion.
And
I agree.
In that extent, for example, me personally, as a person who's Muslim, obviously from Bangladesh, I understand that the culture, having been a prehistoric culture, is not going to be fully Islamic. Fine, khalas, we agree. But that doesn't mean that you can't implement the Islamic principles through basic mannerisms and through basic...
100%.
For example, the weddings. This is something that everyone criticizes. The wedding.
Yeah.
You have the dancing, and you have this, and you have that, and you have...
And a lot of the practices that we see in South Asian weddings in particular
the hulud, for example, the hulud, which stems from Hinduism.
Hindu culture.
But all of these things, I think, can be solved by Islam. Because even the size of Indian weddings, the subcontinent weddings, right? Like when I was in Bangladesh, I was going to be a wedding with 800 people. 800 people in one hall. Can you imagine that? That place must have smelled of biryani and curry at an unbelievable scale. I'm not allowed to say that. But that having that amount of people and spending that amount of money, some people saying £30,000 on a wedding, when that money can be given to the bride or groom and benefiting. You know what I'm trying to say?
If I talk from a personal perspective, I think I'll probably get cancelled. So
no, please speak.
But it's a tricky one. Now, from an Islamic perspective, I don't think culture and religion should be intertwined. Reason being is because if you're focusing on something that connects you with the Lord Almighty in the heavens above, and you live by the principles that He has set for us, a lot of the stuff that takes place in South Asian culture in particular goes against that.
And this is what I would say to you. Culture should not take precedent over religion. Religion must be above culture.
100%.
And your culture has to, for example,
he's talking levels.
Pakistan and Bangladesh, your culture has to be derived from Islam. What is it called? Is it called Pakistan? No, it's called Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Thank you very much.
Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Thank you.
And the basis on which Pakistan was formed. Okay, you can say the language Urdu, you can say this and that, but the basis at which it was formed is not even ethnicity, because how many ethnicities are there in Pakistan? Millions, not even. There's a lot of ethnicity, the Hazaris and whatever. It's based upon Islam.
Yeah.
The Muslims, the reason they created India and Pakistan was to separate the Muslims and the Pakistanis.
The
Muslims and
the meaning of the word Pakistan, clean land, right? Now, when we say clean, we don't mean like actually sparkling clean white. What we're referring to is the spiritual cleanliness.
Yes.
Hence why the name later was reformed as Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Okay. Now, the issue that we see, and going back to the question you asked me about culture, I didn't forget the culture and religion, right? The reason I say that it's a bit tricky to answer from my perspective personally is because I come from a background as a Punjabi where our culture is very rich and very diverse, and it has to a certain degree integrated religion very well. Now, for me to now say that, I disagree with it completely, this, that and the other, from a personal perspective, I think it would, like I said, probably get me cancelled. By anyone that I know.
I think.
But, hear me out, yeah? But, at the same time, no one is stopping us from understanding the true, the true meaning of what culture really is and what religion really is. And so to that extent, I would argue that instead of asking whether culture and religion should be intertwined, we should rather focus on whether culture fits in with religion.
This is the question. And I think this is something crucial. Nationalism, in my opinion, is wrong. Nationalism,
100%.
Being proud of your own
100%.
Ideas or this, that, whatever. However, I would say that taking pride in your culture, for example, let's go for food, for example. It's simple and easy so people understand. Because if we go to other methods, people won't understand. What do we like eating? Rice and dal. That's something that every subcontinent person loves
You
eating.
fool, there's so much.
Okay, let's say, biryani. You want to say biryani?
No, man.
Curries. Whatever, chicken curry.
He's got me starting now. Samosas, kebabs,
suppose-
spring
suppose-
rolls, aloo
okay.
tikkis, dosa. I can
I'm gonna clip
go
this
on
up.
and
I'm gonna clip this up this bit. all of these things we take pride on and we enjoy and that's part of our culture.
Yeah.
It's not separate from Islam, because we're not saying go and eat pork now, because that would be separate from Islam.
Of course.
All of these are part of our culture and part of our, and it's within the permissibility of Islam, 100%. And to be honest, this is part of our rich history. What else is part of it? The culture of the respect. Even if you look at the principles of the different types of weddings and stuff, the fact that they have to respect the mother-in-law and this, that, the levels of that.
not just that though, language, family setting,
100%.
If we look at British culture, for example,
Where does the mother and father go after?
No, not even that.
Where does the kid go after 16?
Not even that, bro. Think about names. We, in our languages, in our cultures, have names for every relation. Mom's brother, dad's brother, mom's sister, dad's sister, mom's niece, mom's nephew, dad's niece, dad's nephew, so on and so forth, all the way up to like great granddad from that side, great grandma. We have so many different names for specific family relations. Look at English, uncle, auntie.
Exactly, that's so
great
true.
uncle, great.
That is absolutely true. And all of this stuff is showing that we should be proud of our culture. But also, in my opinion, and I'm conscious of time, is
I was gonna say
the level of, for example, in the Muslim community, and this is something that I wanted to come to as well.
Good.
In the Muslim community, and I made a video about this on TikTok. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
There's another video idea that I've got with him. I'm gonna keep it a secret, but if you subscribe, hit that like button, everything, comments, like, share, repost, whatever it is you gotta do, yeah. I will come back, and the idea that I've got is gonna blow you away. I promise.
Say no, I believe you.
But yeah,
in the Muslim community, I feel as though there is a level of Arab supremacy. I wanted to get your take on this. The belief that Arabs are somehow greater than the subcontinent Muslims. They are superior. They look down upon us. I said in the video that this is based upon colonialism, because this is a mindset that's spread by colonialism. What's your opinion on that? Without going into it.
Of course. Look, I'll say this, right? And I'm only saying this because I respect all cultures, I respect all traditions, but I also respect all beliefs. Now, when you talk about Arab supremacy, I think one very important thing that I always like to think about is, where has this perception of a nation being greater than another or an idea, because the idea of supremacy is a notion. It's what would you call it? It's not just an idea. It's thinking of a word. Help me out here.
Ideology.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. We'll use that. Yeah, but it's an ideology, right? It's something that has been man-made. Supremacy hasn't come from divine instruction.
No, never.
It hasn't come. Allah has, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't said that this nation is greater than that.
He says the contrary. He says
Bingo.
no Arab is better than
Thank
another.
you. And this is one principle that I live by, right? Now, when we talk specifically about Arab supremacy or perceived Arab supremacy, because I don't think we can attribute every single Arab the same
There's
way.
no criticism on Arabs at all.
No, of course
Criticism
not.
of
But
system.
again, this is something that's very important to discuss, because this is something that the South Asians really look into, and they do believe in the stigma that other nations, like I said, the Western civilization, I guess to a certain extent, the Arab civilization as well, they have this idea of kind of being of some sort of serving, or having this serving element towards these communities in particular, compared to, for example, African communities or Far Eastern communities, right? Why? I think it also depends on the current regime that we see across the world. Obviously, I'm referring to the capitalist regime here, yeah? Now, there's a project that I'm part of. If you don't mind, I'm going to link it in here very quickly.
Just to say as well, before you say this, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Of course.
Is that the Arab, Somali, Asian, whatever Asian, all of it goes back, especially when we're talking about our community. I'm not Bengali or not Pakistani. What are we? What are we actually?
Muslim.
It goes back to the fact that the reason I highlighted the Arab supremacy is not to say, oh yeah, Arabs, yeah. It's to highlight the fact that there should be no supremacy within all of Islam.
It links in with nationalism, as we mentioned before.
And there should be one Muslim
identity. Sick guy.
Segue.
Sick guy. But look, as I was saying, I mean, this is a project that I'm part of. Feel free to check us out on Instagram at the Muslim Identity UK. But one of the core ethos, I guess, of our group, or the core ethos, is to understand the current ideology and methodology by which the Western hegemony has risen up, which is through the pushing of the capitalist regime, through this idea of building nationalism, being proud that you are from this country and you have this passport and you're from this identity. Identity isn't this baseless, my brother. Identity is something that has to be built, and it has to be cherished, and it has to come from an actual cause or an actual purpose. And that purpose that we have as Muslims only comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For us to then use that as, I guess, a snowball effect, that means then that we apply everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our deen teaches us, Islam teaches us, into our lives. We can't then start applying British values and Cantonese values and this value and that value and whatever. You can't be adding that. And again, this whole concept of value is another thing, right? And honestly, I could sit here and talk about it all day, but time is on it, genuinely. But this idea of value was actually the idea that I had, something that we need to discuss, because it not only does it stem from, like I said, the current, oh man, I had such a good word for it, it's gone now. These agendas, see, I had it. These agendas that are being pushed, right? Capitalism, nationalism, literally, thank you. All of these agendas, for them to be pushed out and for them to be forced upon us to a certain degree, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to accept them. 100%. Right? Now, if you look at the schooling system in the UK, for example, and I think this should be the final point, the schooling system in the UK has been designed to push agendas in a way where they are supposedly kid-friendly, where they are supposedly all-encompassing, diverse, inclusive. They throw these labels out. Really and truly, though,
what's the
from a contradictory perspective, what they're really doing is counterintuitive, because then not only are they highlighting the marginalization of communities that need these agendas for
they're saying they're not helping.
They're not
aiding.
Instead, what they're doing is highlighting that gap and making that gap even more visible. And it's like you claim to be helping them, but really and truly you're putting a label on them forcefully. Some of them don't even, and when I say them, I'm talking about from any community. When they talk about, for example, BAME, or they talk about LGBT, or they talk about so many different ideologies, right? And beliefs. Yeah, it's not for us to go out and start labeling it. You're that. You're that. You're that. You're that. You're that. You're that. You can't do that. Why? Because this is what creates divide. This is what creates unrest.
Labels.
Thank you. This is what creates division. And labels is something that, again, people who know me personally will know. Labels are something that I also detest.
100%.
Because nobody should be going around with a name tag. Oh, I am this. I am that. You know, we are human, and humanity should be the sole base that comes first.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end.
That went really deep, but honestly, it was very important. It was on my mind literally from the beginning of the
and I thank
podcast.
you for
Thank you,
those are your final words. I think you can't end on a better note than that.
Literally.
Jazakallah khairan everyone for watching. Make sure to follow IPDF on
KCLIPDF on Instagram.
IPDF on Instagram.
If you want to get involved with the King's TEDx Society, it's TEDx King's College London on Insta. The Muslim Identity UK
on Insta. Check his Insta out as well. Check his normal Insta out. Check out House of Wisdom, KCL
yes,
on Insta.
We literally, come on.
Check out KCLSJP on Insta as well.
Yes.
KCL Stands for Justice.
Yep.
Big up KCL. And make sure to stop thinking of yourself as superior. Check out. Jazakallah khairan for watching, everyone. And again, mirroring what he said, we have to unite as humanity.
100%.
The whole purpose of this podcast is to give a platform to people to speak about these issues which aren't spoken about enough on mainstream media, and to highlight issues which I am personally passionate about, and I know like-minded individuals are as well. So Husnain for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching, and I shall see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.